what I was saying about Blabs finishing Castlevania. So she finished Castlevania and has now moved on to Contra. And I think it's sadistic that that Craig was like talking about her doing it solo, and I was like, Contra's a 2-player game, man. Like, I don't think I've ever played Contra single player. I have, like, I've definitely played single player Contra 3, but it generally, that's the game that I'm like, yeah, I want to wait for my friends to play this because it's the game that we play together. Because man, especially Contra 3 is so damn hard if you're playing it alone. And she was setting up her controls and wanted to have this, like the right bumper button, be her weapon fire button. And it became an interesting discussion because I forget if it was Travis whose take on it was, yeah, you're just not going to be able to fire fast enough with that. And Craig's take, though, was that you shouldn't alter anything. Like, you should play the way you're meant to play it, which means like 2 buttons. Try to make it as much like a Nintendo controller as you possibly can. And my whole thing is, I'm like, I don't know that is... I actually think that's incorrect. Because I sort of think that adjusting input settings and input styles to make the game comfortable for you to play isn't like you're cheating. It's you're removing a layer of abstraction between what your thought is, like the thought that you have, your intention for what your character is supposed to do in the game, and executing that action. Because that's all you're doing in video games. You're intending to do an action, you're inputting something on a controller and hoping that the character that you're playing around with on screen executes the action that you wanted them to execute. And I think that interface is something that should be very flexible. Now, a more valid argument was there's an option in the Contra collection where you can just set a button to be rapid fire for the original games, because while Contra 3 defaulted to rapid fire, Contra 1 and Super C both, because Super C was 2, right? Or was that a spin-off? I don't even know. I didn't really play the NES ones as much. I did play the first one a lot, but I didn't think I ever really played the second one, to be honest. Or maybe Super C's the Game Boy one? I don't know. But there's a button where you can, basically a setting where you could hold a button and have that just keep shooting at like a reasonable fire rate. And I was like, you could maybe make the argument that that is changing input to the point that it is cheating. You know, because you're essentially using a turbo controller, like it's which is something that is on my arcade stick actually, but I will never use while playing fighting games with you, I promise, because I hate the idea of a turbo button. Although at the same time, as far as like accessibility features go, it's like, yeah, my thumb is just not going to be able to handle tapping as many times as I need to tap in this game, and my intention is just continue shooting the rifle, always continue shooting. I do not want you to stop shooting. And that's why I think Contra 3 is a better game than the original Contra, because yeah, that is your intention. That's always your intention. So it is kind of dumb that they had you tap per shot to begin with in Contra, because it's the type of game where you just need to constantly be throwing ammo down range at all times. You have unlimited ammo. And there's no reason, you don't have any friendlies that you have to avoid shooting, so it's just realistically, Contra would be totally fine if you didn't have to press a button to shoot at all.
I mean, Blab's first instinct was not shoot at all, which I found really funny.
Oh my god, yeah, that was hilarious. She was trying to play the game like Super Mario Brothers. Like, she was jumping on the enemies in Contra, which is a game where you like the player character is always a one-hit kill. You can't take damage in Contra. You just die. Your damage is calculated in the lives you have left, and every time you die, you get kicked back. So imagine if in a modern video game, every time you got hit, it sent you back to the checkpoint. That's what we're talking about. That's what Contra is, and the checkpoints are far apart. So realistically, you kind of need to get through the level. And no, she wasn't trying to be a pacifist. She thought that jumping on the enemies would kill them. And she didn't understand why she was dying. It's like, Blabs, you have a gun. Fire the gun, Blabs. Like, it was pretty funny. I gotta say, I enjoyed it a lot watching it. But yeah, I think though that the rapid fire option, you could make an argument that even though I think it functionally would make the game better if you had a rapid fire option, you could make the argument that it would then be crossing the line into cheating, because you're performing an action which you have to perform in this game, which is difficult to do, and you're trivializing it down to being completely easy, like, oh, not a thing that's a challenge to do at all. And when it comes to that challenge being, oh, how fast can you tap your thumb, I'm like, well, I don't know that I'm bothered by that challenge being lessened at all, you know? But if it's something like, oh, but what if in a Dark Souls game, you could make it so that there were no boss runs? You never had to do a boss run, you just teleport right to the boss. I'd be like, that's, as much as I think that from a game design point is better, it's also, hey, but now that's a whole aspect of this game that I'm just entirely avoiding.